been really looking forward to this discussion. I listened to your points on zero trust, and without naming breaches, because I've seen so many of them, Muzamil, I've seen, more importantly, the bit that sits behind it, the human cost. Breaches are now becoming normal. And if you look at the root cause, all the organizations have formal cybersecurity programs and structure. So they have CISOs, senior managers, they have EDR, they've got SOC, they've got policies, compliance, programs, GRC functions, everything you dream of. And then you look at the root cause of some of these things, and they're going back to, dare I say, two major clusters of areas. One is obviously human factor, but I'm interested, which is where this conversation needs to go to, which is the components behind the human factor. And the other one is misconfigurations. The only major antidote we have right now to the collapse or breach of our systems that govern the human. We call that zero trust. It's the only way now we can get our hands around this problem, right? So tell me your thinking, because you have really worked this.
Well, we have been talking about zero trust for more than a decade now.
Yes.
But it has gained cadence, I think, for last few years, where people are adopting zero trust principles, architecture, you would say, after NIST gave an architecture on zero trust. So we talk about the architectures. But before I say that, this is for the whole audience, that zero trust is not about a product. So you can't think of getting a product and you will have the zero trust. It's about the principles. It's about the mindset. And as you said, you can't trust human elements now, or neither you can trust your networks from technical perspective. Reason being, if you see recent Verizon data breach investigation report for 2025, 60% of breaches involved human element, and 22% of that was, credential compromise. So still humans are the weakest link. And on the other side, as I said, networks can't be trusted either. 22% of the breaches involved your edge devices, including VPN. I'll come to it, why we are moving away from the VPN, but this supports that. So still, that's been exploited. In a sense, it's not VPN intrinsically is insecure. The misconfigurations which you talked about. On top of it, if there's a 0 day, it's an attack surface which is there.
It's a design, isn't it?
It's a design in itself. Like when you connect to the VPN, you connect to the network first, then authenticate. Like VPN is an open port there on the internet. So it's an attack surface. It can be exploited. If there is for example, I have seen breaches happening where you forget to patch your perimeter firewall with VPN service running on it, and somehow adversaries got hold of it. So that's how they got access to your network. So it is an attack surface. I'll talk about it as we go, how we can move away from it, and how the zero trust is the way, or zero trust network access is the way going forward. If you ask a question to a security practitioner and ask them, keep a hand on your heart and say, the firewalls are still your first line of defense, no one will agree now. The reason being, when you see, Professor Dan, firewalls nowadays stopping compromised contractor who has a cloud login, because that's outside of perimeters. And when did you see a dodgy API? When can we stop a dodgy third-party API? Or, for example, our CEO's kid playing with the reply all button on a shared iPad. So it can't stop that. So the reality is, we always used to talk about that castle and moat architecture in 1990s when our perimeters were well defined. So it took us decades to build that castle. But the reality is that moat has tried away, and that drawbridge is already down, and the data, our critical data, is already on the other side. Reason being, perimeters have now faded away. We see users everywhere. Our networks have expanded, SaaS proliferation. Our data is on the cloud, and users moving, with COVID and all, users are everywhere. So your perimeters have faded away with the advent of time. That's what has caused the increase in attack surface. What has made our human elements more prone to these phishing attacks, because we were still thinking that mindset that we can have all the security stack at the data center and have all the traffic here pinned to it, because that security stack doesn't work, that way. Now we need to think about how our perimeters have evolved now. Your data is now your perimeter. Your identity is now new perimeter. That's why you see more security controls coming around the end user, oriented around the end users, because your users are everywhere. So that should be your perimeter. That is a zero trust principle.
The problem isn't it, that we've always looked at the control as a binary thing. What have we done? We've secured identity. How did we do it? We put a multi-factor in here. But we spent millions, Muzamil, on these architectures, and we then go and steal the token and render them useless is through a simple trick, be it your email, message, whatever it might, barcode or whatever.
Nowadays they do SIM swaps as well to get the hold of these messages which come as an OTP. So yeah, there are ways to circumvent such controls. You're right.
We look at the problem now. Let's marry zero trust with controls, with SOC, with the word we need to say in this conversation, which is AI. If I look at this, right, it logically is not that complicated. We need to know we've authenticated someone, but that someone does certain things and has certain needs with an organization, right? We just look at the design, we authenticate them, but we shouldn't necessarily place 100% trust in that authentication. There are, as you say, adaptive and leading indicators.
It has to be adaptive.
It has to be. Who does that well, by the way, but we'll come back to that. But the SOC I see 1 in every 20 even does the basics. Picks up a password spray or a geolocation. So we're talking about adaptive zero trust on one end, and the fact that a multi-million-dollar architecture is essentially flawed because we know we can trick a user. But our detective mechanisms, let alone the responsive mechanisms, are not even playing in this. So when I was on stage with you and looking at what you were saying at the conference, I was thinking in a different way. You made me think that the only way to address the organic nature and the dispersed nature and the data as our boundary and such now, the only way now really is going to be adopting the principles and models of zero trust, right? And then maybe bringing AI in to enable the adaptive element.
You're absolutely right. AI will do one thing. It will speed up the detection capabilities, right? It can do a lot of, those mathematical calculations to come up to decision level, what has been the UEBA, which we talk about, user and entity behavior analysis, which is very important to get that adaptive access control from the user perspective, what the user or the entity was or application was doing.
If we take us, let's say it's a large organization, large enterprise, we are never going to be able to re-architect our large orgs, fully lock down AD, make sure everything, is segmented correctly. Zero trust as a sort of virtual and conceptual layer on top of that is our only way of gathering this together, right?
Absolutely right. Because your traditional hardware-based devices can't give you that context around the access. It can define, okay, Dan needs to have access to this application or a server, but it doesn't take into account where you logged in from, what is your behavior, has your behavior changed with the advent of time, or what other things you are doing. So that context is where zero trust comes in, that conceptual layer, that virtual layer, which brings in all these signals together and define the trust score or the confidence level to your identity.
I think so many people think zero trust is this chain of things, and if we're not sure, we escalate and ask another question. What you said is the devices have no context. So our zero trust doesn't just give more and more authentication when it's not sure. It maintains a behavioral context.
That confidence, it adds to the risk score of that identity or a process or what an application or a device or a network, everything. It adds that risk score to it. And if it goes beyond a threshold, everything adds up. Then it takes whatever action we have defined for it. So that conceptual layer is what zero trust brings into context.
But people don't think of zero trust like that. They just say, I don't trust that authentication. Let's re-authenticate again.
Yeah, so you need to add up all these signals and have that risk score. So that adaptive access control. You give the access, but that doesn't mean you have the same access all the time. So your access should be defined by your behavior, what you have been doing with the advent of time, and it should change accordingly. Your access should change accordingly.